aftermath of 2 more killings in the last mass shootings in the last 24 hours, and help us to follow your will in all that we do. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So as a process of my discernment to become a priest, it became apparent that God wanted me to be a sober priest. So I didn't argue. When I realized I needed to go to AA, I've been in Al-Anon for 13 years, so I knew what was in the basement while I, a little bit wisely, went upstairs to the real group, Al-Anon. It became apparent I belonged in the cellar with everybody else. And it took a lot of shame up to the surface, and I at first didn't quite believe I was an alcoholic. I mean, I knew I was, but I didn't have a drunk-a-log like everybody else. But what happened as I started to recover in the rooms of AA was that the memories started coming back, and boy, I did have a drunk-a-log. I just separated myself from that. I'd grown up in an alcoholic family. I married good alcoholic men, so I could always compare my drinking to theirs. And I never drank as much as they did, because I wasn't an alcoholic. Because I was taught to not be an alcoholic. Or I'd end up like some of my family members, an uncle committed suicide, another one got sober and was in AA, but they didn't tell me about him. What was unusual about my recovery was that it was in the midst of living in a convent, so I had to fight for the right to go to 3 meetings a week when the sisters wanted me home singing in the choir. Now, everybody drank in my order. They drank more than I did, so I felt right at home. These people were just like my husbands. But what is happening as I was drinking with these sisters was that the program of Al-Anon wasn't working anymore. And I started having conversations with myself like the man with all the grain in the barns, when he's speaking to his soul. Let's eat, drink, and be merry. But here's how my inner dialogue was going. Okay, let's see, today I'm going to walk to the liquor store and I'm going to buy one of those 12 packs of 6-ounce beers. Do you remember those little pony packs they were called? You don't, only an alcoholic knows where they are. But I told myself I will drink just this little beer every day. Was that any fun? I had no fun doing that. You can't feel the effects with a little tiny beer. Once in the convent, I was deciding things like this. Only 1 glass of wine, okay, maybe 2. Oh, 3 at the most. Don't drink hard liquor. All right, this day we're not going to drink any wine because it's not a saint's day. Let's only drink on saints' days. So I was having this one-sided conversation with myself that pretty much left me unavailable for anything else. I was planning when to drink, how much to drink, and wishing that I could feel better in my Al-Anon meetings because they weren't working anymore. So when I finally gave up and went to a meeting, I drove 50 miles north of Augusta, where I was living now, and I went to a meeting in Athens, where I used to live, and wouldn't you know, the speaker was a woman who went to my church, who I helped celebrate the wedding of this woman, and I was working at the altar, so I got to drink all of the leftover wine from the communion celebrated at her wedding. And I remembered that vividly as she was telling her story. I went 50 miles out of my way to go to this meeting. Of all the nerve. So when I finally got into Alcoholics Anonymous, the first thing they asked me was, what is your sobriety date? And I hadn't a clue, because I had given up drinking 6 months prior out of solidarity with my alcoholic friends, because I wasn't an alcoholic. I really knew how to do the dance, and my inner dialogue was fast and furious. So I went into my diary, a journal that I kept religiously, so to speak, and I found the day that I last had a drink. It was 50 years to the day of the anniversary of my baptism. And all of a sudden, I never noticed that day, but I had to look it out on a form. But when I looked it up, here I am both discerning the priesthood and seeing that the day I gave up drinking, unbeknownst to me, was the 50th anniversary of my baptism. So this morning at the 7:30 service, we had a baptism, an adult, Doug McNeil, who walked up here very happy as you please, and asked to be baptized. Dunked his head in the water, and we had a wonderful celebration of baptism. One of the reasons that I haven't gone out since 2002, when I took my last drink on December 21st, St. Thomas Day, I haven't gone out, as they say, or picked up, is what they also say, because that baptism anniversary is so important to me. If I take another drink, I'd have to lose that day as my anniversary and get another one, because I would eventually come back, but I'd be worse for wear. What happens with that man's talking to himself that's different from what I was doing is I was having a one-sided conversation with my disease, with alcoholism. This guy that we have in our gospel today is having a one-sided discussion with his soul, and that makes it ridiculous. Does his soul need all the security of the things he wants to do during life? Eat, drink, and be merry? Well, Jesus teaches us to eat, drink, and be merry, but it's all in the context. Look at the context in which Jesus wants us to do it. We eat, drink, and be merry. We're singing beautiful hymns. We're drinking wine. We're eating bread. And who's the focus of our service? Jesus and our allegiance to Jesus. And so our head is not full of, when am I going to get to drink that alcohol up there on the altar? Hopefully. Mine used to be. But we're thinking, what can I give back to God, right? And the soul is the part of us that does that. I wasn't considering my soul when I was thinking about what I was going to drink, how much I was going to drink, what I was going to drink, why. I never thought about why I was going to drink. I had to drink because it was part of who I was. But once I got in sobriety, I got introduced to a much broader vision of my Christian faith. And it took Alcoholics Anonymous for me to wake up and experience my Episcopal church in a way I never experienced it before. The story spoke to me that had never spoken to me before. There's a whole lot of readings about wine, did you know that? And there are alcoholics in the Bible, did you know that? Noah. You can go back and read the story of Noah. But the object of today's lesson is something that we all need to be reminded of. That each of us fights with inner demons of one sort or another. If we have a sick member of the family, or if our husband or wife are sick, our life revolves around caretaking, so that nothing else gets in. We just have to constantly be there for our partner. We have many in our congregation who are struggling with this. There's not room for much else. We struggle with addictions, with illness, with our own ages, with politics. There's so many things to suffer about. We come together as Christians and as a community to let all of that fall off of us, like taking the armor off, and be honest with one another, and know that we desire Christ not to feed our addictions, but to teach us how to be a real person, how to be good givers, how to use our gifts to a better purpose, how to stay in touch with Christ if we are doing the service work of caring for our ill family member. We can't get extra help. We have to learn how to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And this one couldn't be a priest without being sober. And I got it in time. A lot of people don't get it. There are a lot of priests out there who need help. So we pray for everyone who's still running from their addictions, because it's not a happy place to be. And we pray for everyone who suffers, reaching out for help, that we will